the mongrel mob have adopted deliberately offensive, and it was designed to be offensive, memorabilia and greetings that emanate purely from the white Aryan totalitarianism of Nazi Germany, which would have been offensive, of course, to return service people in the 1960s and 1970s, but now it's part of their culture. And so the Prime Minister's suggesting that it's possible, and he's open to banning the Sieg Heil salute, a gesture used as a greeting, obviously, in Nazi Germany, and adopted by the mongrel mob for several decades, and as well as banning, obviously, their patches and a variety of other of their memorabilia. Joining us to talk about that, and also the continuing procession of mongrel mob and motorcycle gang tangi funeral cortèges that weave their way through state highways and disrupt ordinary law-abiding New Zealanders, is the Minister of Police, Mark Mitchell, and he joins us now. Minister, thank you so much for joining us, and
no problem,
welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Listen, mate, Mark, one of the things that you were going to get rid of, and listen, I know, it's all right, I'm not going to have a go at you, but one of the things you were going to get rid of was the lawlessness of these kind of funeral cortèges, processions that glory in intimidating anybody that comes across them, and that instead of the police acting as some sort of highly paid flunky or escort, then we're going to disrupt them and stop that kind of activity. I think another one's set up for today that you might be aware of as well in the Wanganui region.
Yes.
Listen, we expected the police to be a bit more active than saying we're going to send them an infringement notice afterwards. Were you expecting that too?
Look, they've actually been very effective, and although it hasn't had much media coverage and publicity in the last 10, 11 months, they've definitely increased resources. They're definitely controlling these gang convoys much better. There's been convoys all over the country. Normally they've been taking over provincial towns, they've been taking over roads, they've been blocking roads. The police have actually been very effective, even the ones that you've seen down in Upper Hutt and Pororua, where they said, look, there will be a bit of congestion because there are going to be more vehicular traffic coming through, and there was, but they kept things moving. The gangs certainly towed the line. We had some anecdotal reports that they were using Sieg Heil and that sort of abuse, which they always carry on with. The police will deal with that at the time, but they've actually been very effective in terms of policing gangs. My expectation was, as the incoming minister, is that stop filming them on the side of the road and go and do some follow-up work later, start being proactive in policing them, and they've done that.
Yeah, well, there's another one going on today, and that's still carrying on. Listen, it's deeply offensive to the community, and I mean, it's also anti-Semitic. Many of the utterances that they're involved in, they intimidate people, they cause the congestion that you're talking about, Mark. Don't we need a little bit more activity yet from the police to disrupt this? Because it seems almost they're doing it as an act of defiance as well, of you and of this government.
Well, I mean, obviously the expectations are that the police put resources in place and that they're protecting and prioritising the rights of law-abiding Kiwis over those of gang members if they choose to break the law. The reality of it is the laws in New Zealand don't stop gang members from being able to participate in a tangi or a funeral. It doesn't preclude them from getting out on the roads and doing what might happen at other funerals, but I've been very clear, and the police have responded to this, that should they put a foot out of line, should they start to do some of the antics that we saw them doing the last few years, then I expect that there's a very strong police response to that. And they have responded very well. They've been arresting gang members, they've been seizing vehicles. We haven't seen big headlines in the paper for the last 10, 11 months because they've actually been very effective. There's been some very big tangis and gang convoys around the country during that time.
Well, you've also got the gang insignia ban and memorabilia, all that sort of ban coming up. Now, this is going to be the really interesting thing. This is going to be when, it seems to me, the rubber's going to hit the road, really. Because obviously the ostentatious display of gang membership, gang patches, gang memorabilia is a huge part of these funeral cortèges. Listen, they're just waving the bird at the rest of society. Are you going to put the resources, or make sure, Mark, that the resources are going to be available to disrupt them, because there will come a physical, and I would suggest to you, violent confrontation. It'd have to be if you're going to try and enforce the legislation.
Well, of course, I hope that's not the case, but yes, the police are preparing for this. There's a lot of preparation going on. There's gang disruption units that have been stood up. We've got our specialist tactical units like AOS, SDG and the dog section. And look, the reality of it is we're in this position as a country because the gangs have been allowed to grow. They have been allowed to operate in a very permissive environment. They have been allowed to think they're above the law. And yes, you're right. They seem to take great pleasure in the fact that they get out there and intimidate and scare people. And that's why we've taken such a hard line against them, and that's why we're supporting the police with additional powers to get on top of them so the public can see that our police are controlling our streets and not the gangs.
Well, when does that? How far are we through the gang patch legislation? When is that going to become law?
Well, we're just about. It's going to become law about, I think, the 15th of November. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and check the exact date.
Oh gosh, it's not far away. Yeah.
No.
Do you need? It seems to me, and this is not a criticism. It's just the way it's evolved. But it's not a criticism of you because you've inherited it. But the police aren't the physical dominant presence they used to be. There aren't the 6-footers from the first 15 that tended to make up the front line. There's been recruitment that's obviously meant to be more reflective of our society. It's got more women, more small people, more people like me, just quietly, weedy white people as well. But I mean, these gangs are big, fearsome, intimidatory, meth dealing, weightlifting types who really have a complete disdain for anything that looks like order.
Yep.
Do you have the physical presence to be able to handle gangs in this country? Or do the police?
Yes, we do. Yeah, look, we do. I know the point you're trying to make, but yes, we do. I go to a graduation once a month, and it never ceases to amaze me the quality of the young people that we have coming through. Actually, some older people now too. And yes, we've got a world-class police force, highly trained, that is more than capable of dealing with the gangs. You've just got to back them, you've got to give them the tools, and then allow them to get on and do their job, and they will do it.
Do you need the army?
No, we don't need the army. The police will be able to handle the gangs, and they are handling the gangs. They have started putting real pressure on them. You've seen them take down the entire chapter of the Comancheros in the South Island, who are out there bragging about owning the South Island now, controlling organised crime, and the following week the police took a whole lot of them down. You've seen the massive disruption with the muggle mob on the East Coast peddling drugs and violence. So, the pressure is going to continue to increase on gangs, and it's going to be much harder to be a gang member in New Zealand than it was over the last 5 or 6 years.
In the in the New Zealand Herald, and you'd be aware of it this morning, Mark, there is a headline, police no-show to Hamilton home invasion attempt leaves woman in wheelchair terrified. You would have seen that particular issue.
Well, I was just reading the headline on that now. So the police have been around to see her and provide reassurance, which is the right thing to do. I'm not totally in the details as much as you in terms of what I've read. Because obviously they were prioritising because the offender had left. They felt like they had some breathing space to get back to her. But at the end of the day, the police have responded. They've been around. They've provided reassurance, and admitted the fact that there should have been a quick response.